Let me ask you a little bit more about your own personal health journey, because you said you were quite, you had a lot of health issues, and then you discovered I guess you saw me on Rogan and discovered carnivore. What was going on there? How did that happen?
So at that point in time, my mom, my whole life, had a lot of health issues. By the time she died, she couldn't really eat anything without throwing it up later. She had horrible chronic pain. I kind of just thought, like, before I found the carnivore diet, I kind of just thought that I had some sort of autoimmune thing. And maybe that's true. I haven't had any of these things officially diagnosed, mostly lack of money. It's hard to get diagnoses for things. I was starting to have a lot of the same issues. Like, I spent most of my days nauseous. Like, I couldn't really do much physical activity without, like, having to sit down and calm my stomach. And I was dizzy all the time. I had horrible migraines that would put me to bed at 7 p.m. every day. I was just living a really horrible quality of life. Like, I had IBS. It was really scary because I was only like 24, 25 years old at the time. And it felt like my body was failing me. Like, I felt, like I was falling apart, and that something really serious was going on. I wasn't able to sleep because of it. Cause like, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and, you roll over and you go back to sleep. Well, sometimes when I'd wake up, I'd roll over and make myself motion sick and have to get up and, essentially try not to throw up for a while. I didn't realize at the time that, like, it was primarily the food that I was eating, because I was basically eating a standard American diet. I was with emphasis on junk food, just because that's how I was raised. It's also worth mentioning that I was diagnosed with malnutrition as a kid because my mom was kind of a fail in a lot of ways, and she didn't really feed us that well. And it kind of set me up badly for adulthood. Add the stresses of life and an abusive relationship, and my body was starting to really fail me. Like, I was covered in sores, and you can see that in the series. A lot of people imply that I was like a heroin addict or something, which I've never been into those drugs, but I can see where they would say that, because I was just covered in open sores from chronic cystic acne, literally all over my body. And then I found the carnivore diet, and my partner was like, he basically, pushed me into it, because I was like, man, I don't want to eat only meat. Like, I'm a good cook. I like to cook a lot of things. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And he was basically like, look, you're afraid that you're falling apart, but you're not willing to try it. That was one instance in which I was appreciative of him being pushy, because I actually did try it. I definitely went through some mental stuff for a long time where I was pissed that, I only felt better eating mostly meat or only meat, but I kind of started to embrace it, especially after the murder. It was like the one thing I felt I had control over. And so I dived into it, because I realized you're not supposed to have headaches every day and horrible IBS symptoms and nausea constantly and all the other things that I was experiencing. I just thought that was, part of getting older, because that's what my mom experienced. But apparently that's not how things are supposed to be. I did that for a long time, exclusively, almost 2 years. I did only beef for about 7 months after the murder, and a month before the murder too. And I was able to figure out what my trigger foods are and what things I should really avoid, and what, how to proceed.
So as far as, it's how did that, as you incorporated food, and you mentioned you were in Acapulco, and you said Acapulco had kind of crappy or shitty meat is what you said. How did you get food to eat there? How did that work for you? What were you eating?
Well, I was like going to the marketplace a lot, and I was getting essentially like low quality grass-fed beef. And I say low quality because like it doesn't rain 8 months out of the year there. So like there's not really much for grass. And it's one of those things where it was kind of, it was just not very enjoyable to do carnivore until I moved. And then I moved to the state of Michoacan, and like this state is known for, the high quality meat. It's got a lot of cows. It's got a lot of grassy areas that are naturally grassy. And I just remember like when I moved, it was so much easier to stick to the diet and to really enjoy the diet, because the meat was just much better quality, much better texture, better tasting. I just kind of suffered my way through it in the time that I was in Acapulco, if I'm being honest. Like, I was eating a lot of steak and stuff, but it was low quality steak. It was just kind of very lean, very tough.
Mm-hmm.
Had to be cooked a certain way, like, or it wasn't very good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. So you have a lot of lean meat, which is hard because you you need at least a decent amount of fat to have energy.
I was making my own beef tallow too, but it didn't taste very good because of the quality, which that got a lot better when I moved as well.
You mentioned that there's been a shift within your local community, and I don't know if there's a broader anarchist community worldwide, nationwide. I don't know how many people, maybe you have an idea how many people participate in this. I am aware, I know a lot of people within sort of the crypto space that have adopted, a carnivore sort of lifestyle that seems to be growing, and there's quite a bit of them. Are you seeing a lot of people? Is there a shift away from sort of maybe a veganism diet to more carnivore in general in that community?
Yeah, that is what I'm noticing. I think the veganism fad in our community only lasted about as long as most vegans stay vegan, if I'm being honest. It was kind of like 3 or 4 years where it was like most of the speakers at Acapulco were vegan or vegan tolerant. And then about 2020, which was the first year, I actually spoke at the event. I did 2 speeches, one of which is shown in the series and the other one isn't, but it was on the health stage, and it was about the carnivore diet. And that was really the first time that the event had embraced the carnivore diet. And when I started the carnivore diet, I did it really publicly. It was very much this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm experiencing. This is how I'm feeling. This is how my body looks. And I've had a lot of people, specifically a lot of vegans, contact me for advice on how to start eating meat again. It's really exciting because at that point, they were my friends, and I worried about them. The more I got into the carnivore thing, the more I started to worry about the vegans that weren't, complete dicks to everybody that they talked to about it. It was just like, okay. And it was sad for them to come to me and be like, hey, think you're onto something with this meat thing. I'm suffering. But it was exciting to see people starting to choose themselves and to choose their own health instead of just let's do it for the animals. And there are still definitely clearly some vegans in the community, but the ones that are left really for the most part aren't that dogmatic. The majority of the people, and this is in the greater anarchist community, know that taking care of yourself is more important than a moral standpoint. Because I get the vegan standpoint, morally speaking, to an extent. I'm an animal lover. I love animals. Even cows, very sweet animals. I've had a cow lick my hand and give kisses before, but I also know that cows can be raised humanely and harvested humanely. And that happens more, I think, in Mexico than it does in the United States as far as that. I've seen a lot of happy cows. Even in the city that I live in, I've seen my first apartment here. I woke up one morning to the mooing of cows, and there were 30 cows just hanging out in my street. So they're happier in Mexico. And I think it's just been a huge shift within the community and just in general. With people that I know going from, hardcore vegan to, okay, I need to take care of my body. A lot of them experience fertility issues and stuff like that. And it's sad to see, but it's good to see them get over it.